Hi, this is Milo for bestpokercoaching.com, and today we will talk about 4-bet bluffing. Now, in this video we have an example of a hand with our opponent which has a 3-bet of 17%, which is not even that much. But as you can see, he's a little bit on the nitty side, like his win to showdown is 23, his call steal is 18. It's actually not even that bad, but we have some notes on him as well. Let's take a look at the notes. 3-bet is low, 14% of the time, so it was even lower. But he did 3-bet 10-8 offsuited. Now, as you know, 10-8 offsuited is a pretty trashy hand. There is no way 10-8 offsuited is in a 14% range if it would be just a value range. Then I also saw him that he didn't 3-bet King-Queen offsuited, so I know that when he 3-bets, there is a lot of trash in his hands, just from previous hands which went to showdown and where I made a note of. Then another tip is he folded versus small 4-bet from 100 to 230. So this is an extremely easy opponent to 4-bet bluff. In general, when I don't have these notes, I just try it out and then I make a note and I tell them didn't fold to small 4-bet bluff, or the called small 4-bet bluff, or folded versus small 4-bet bluff. I use, in general, I like to see whether they're nitty or not, and I like to look at their fold to 3-bet stat and see if it is particularly high. Actually, I think that's a somewhat decent prediction, but in general, people still react very differently to folding to 3-bets and folding to 4-bets. So I use it if I don't have any information. I use it as one of the statistics to see whether the guy is nitty or not. So let's continue the hand. We make it 20. Why do we actually make it 20 against this guy? Well, his call to steal is so low that it's probably, even when we made it 20, I made it 20 against him all the time, and he just doesn't adjust. He doesn't call a lot. So then when he keeps folding so much, we can actually make it 20, even though his 3-bet is below 20% as well. Actually, we could make a 3x as well, because we make quite a lot of money post-flop because he's folding so much, like 49%. But 2x is fine in this scenario as well. Anyway, so we make it 180. That's about the right size, I would say, like about 10 big blinds, like 11, 12 big blinds. So for example, like a pot size bet here would be, let's see, it would be 1 in 60, like 240, I think. So we make it like quite a lot less than a pot size bet. And actually we're giving him very good odds to call here with a lot of hands. So if he would be realizing that, he would call. Like if somebody would 3-bet me like this with like less than a pot size bet, I am calling a lot. But we see he folds. So this is a good guy to 4-bet. Then as well, make notes about 4-bet bluffing. I think that is really important. So when we go back to our, oh, that's the wrong thing. When we go back to, where's the note? Here you go. When we go back to the note, I would make, like I didn't actually do it, idem for 180 to 180. So, or I would make it like 2x. So that I know that it's confirmed. I think, like I said, making notes in 4-betting pots is very important, because people act very differently in 4-bet pots. And you can use the statistics fold to 4-bet, but in general you'll have sample size issues, because the situation where you can 4-bet bluff does not occur so often. So and also you don't want to make your stat like you don't want to make your HUD huge. Maybe you could put it in a pop-up window, but I like to use notes for that, especially because you can also see also make a note about the sizing you used. And of course the most important stat is their 3-bet range. So in this case their 3-bet is 17%. In general I would say try 4-betting people when their 3-bet is above 20%, because that means that they have quite a lot of trash in their range. Or if, like we saw in the previous example where the guy had a very polarized 3-bet range with a lot of trash, like 10-8 offsuited. Now why did I pick a trashy hand, a fairly trashy hand like 7-6 offsuited? Well, the theory is 4-bet bluff with the best hand you would normally fold. This is actually derived from Sklansky, who I think Sklansky made it into who wrote it in his book, one of his poker theory books. I couldn't find the exact quote, but I found this topic on 2+2. It says, bluffing with the top of your folding range, and there is a question, please help me clarify this, blah blah blah. Actually, Sklansky himself, he comments on this as well. I don't think he actually read the topic very well, because he's just talking about post-flop instead of pre-flop. But actually the guy above him makes a very good post, and he is saying, I mean, I want to give him some credit, plan sir, he makes a very good post, and so I'm just going to quote him. You gain nothing from your entire folding range, so if you 4-bet bluff, or if you bluff and get a fold, it doesn't matter if you have the worst hand in your folding range or the best hand in your folding range. However, if you are called, then it really matters if your hand is the worst hand in your folding range or the best. For instance, if you have a gut shot single straighter on a turn, blah blah blah, you might have 8% equity, close to 0% equity. Well, this is more for post-flop play, but it's the same principle goes up in pre-flop. If you're getting called, if I'm getting called, then I'd rather have a hand like 7-6 of suited instead of having a hand like, let's say, having a hand like 8-2 of suited. Like just one 4-bet bluffing, stay away from the really trashy hands. Stay away from like off-suited juices, like something like 10-5 off-suited, like off-suited 4s, off-suited 3s. I would say I think most suited hands actually make a pretty good 4-bet bluff. Maybe you can, the suited juices, the low suited juices, you shouldn't use them as a 4-bet range, as a bluff. Like off-suited kings make a good range to 4-bet bluff, I think, because I mean you can spike a king and you actually have pretty decent equity against medium pocket pairs. Some hands like Queen 8, like as you can see there, it kind of depends as well on the 3-better. So for example, if the guy has a 3-bet of 20%, you can, for example, even 4-bet bluff with a hand like Queen 4 suited, because you would normally not call with that hand. Anyway, the point is, don't 4-bet bluff with the hands which you can actually call. So here's an example of a hand which you should never turn into a 4-bet bluff. Actually, the opponent is very good to 4-bet bluff again. At least his statistics seem like he's a very likely candidate to fold versus a small 4-bet bluff. Like his fold to 3-bet is pretty high. His 3-bet is like 24. So he has a lot of trash in his 3-bet range. So we can actually try to 4-bet him and see if it works, and then make a note about it. However, we actually have a pretty good hand. We have King 7 suited, so he makes it 8 big blinds, and then we can just go to our standard chart and we can see about 25% 3-better. We see King 7 suited is perfectly well in there, even against a 20% 3-better. It would be a call. So never turn this hand into a 4-bet bluff. Why not? Well, what if you 4-bet bluff and he goes over the top? You just lose a lot of value. You didn't even get to see a flop. If you can't call with King 7 suited. If you make it a 4-bet bluff and he pushes, if he had a really good hand, or maybe even if he had a bad hand, like what if he decides to push like a low pocket pair, then we actually having a coin flip. But we are not going to call with our King 7 suited. So don't turn these medium good hands into a bluff. If you can call according to the chart, then simply call. Anyway, so what happens in the hand? We don't hit anything and he makes it 90. This continuation bet in reverse spot to 73. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we just have nothing, and the board is actually, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's good to raise this guy either, so we just fold. I mean, that's the standard move you make. Like in general, I want to finish this video by saying that be really careful with 4-bet bluffing. Like your first instinct should be when you face a 3-bet and it's not in the range, not in the chart, so the chart says we cannot call, then your first instinct should be fold. And like, I'll show you a terrible play I made myself, and I made a lot of them. This was not easy to find in my database. So we have a guy who has a 3-bet of 14%, which is actually really low, so he's not even exploiting us. So there is actually no point in even 4-bet bluffing. I mean, we might try it out once and see how he reacts, but in general, I would say you can easily never 4-bet bluff this guy, and you will be fine. So I mean, we make it 190, which I think is just a little bit too small as well, especially since his 3-bet was largely is on the large side. So I think we should have made it at least 200, 210, 220, something like that. Anyway, he pushes, surprise, surprise, because you know his 3-bet range is 14%, so he actually has a lot of strong hands. This was a terrible play, and it cost me like 190 euros or dollars. And you know, so in general, be careful with this move. Don't overdo it. Actually, I like doing it early in the session. I made a little spreadsheet about this. Like, so 4-bet bluff early in the session, I think that's fine because you get more credit for your first 4-bet. I don't like I don't like it. Excuse me. I don't like it when my first 4-bet is a really good hand, because if I have aces and I make a 4-bet and it's my first 4-bet, I think I get a lot of credit for it. And I don't want to get a lot of credit when I actually have the nuts. So I like to 4-bet bluff early in the session. Then if it works, make a note and try it again when there is not a good opportunity. Then if it doesn't work, just stop trying. Don't get yourself in this game, because you will lose a lot of money. Like, they're pretty big pots. Like a 4-bet bluff, you know, it will usually cost you at least 20 big blinds, something like that. It's just a lot of money. So stop trying and wait for the times when you actually have a good hand, and hopefully he will remember then that if it didn't work, he kind of caught you bluffing, 4-bet bluffing. You know, if you would make a 4-bet, a small 4-bet, and he 5-bet pushes, then it's kind of obvious, and you fold then, and it's kind of obvious that you didn't have anything because you have kind of good odds. So you will only you will just fold, and you kind of got caught bluffing. So hopefully he will remember that hand, and then you actually do it again, and he will think, hopefully he will think, alright, last time he had a bluff, so he probably always does it with a bluff, and then actually you have the nuts. So follow this plan, try 4-betting early in the session as a bluff, and then if it doesn't work, just leave it at that. Don't overdo the 4-bet bluffing, it will cost you a lot.